President of the Republic of Maldives.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا. هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا. هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عليما حكيما. ليدخل المؤمنين والمؤمنات جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ويكفر عنهم سيئاتهم وكان ذلك عند الله فوزا عظيما. صدق الله العظيم.
The recitation from the Holy Quran was made by Al-Qari Ibrahim Shifao. I now invite His Excellency Dr. Ahmad Shahid, Minister of Foreign Affairs, to deliver his welcome remarks. His Excellency Dr. Ahmad Shahid.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your Excellency President Muhammad Nasheed, Vice President Dr. Muhammad Wahid, Special Envoy, UN Resident Coordinator, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed an honor for me to extend a very warm welcome to all of you to the 3rd Maldives Partnership Forum. I thank all those who have traveled from overseas to attend this gathering, as well as my compatriots who are assembled here today to discuss the important steps that we, as a nation, must take in partnership with our international friends to make things better for our people. especially on a day like this when we would rather be at the beach, perhaps in the lagoon as well. I would also like to thank the President for agreeing to inaugurate the event and the Vice President for agreeing to address the first thematic session of the forum. Excellencies, my friend, the UN Resident Coordinator, and I have had the honor to co-host the two previous forums as well. These meetings were held on the back of promises of reform. Many of you adopted a wait-and-watch approach. This time when we meet, after an interval of about 2 years, the people of this country have spoken freely and boldly. They have embraced the notion that democratic governance committed to the fulfillment of the wishes of the people is what they want. 4 months on, the people are impatient to redeem the pledges that were made to them by the democratic parties. The people want tangible proof that it was better to have voted on a manifesto rather than on a fistful of rufiya. They want proof that it was better to have defied the pressures of the corrupt officials and voted on the dictates of their conscience. They want to show to their skeptical cousins that democracy feeds them better than does tyranny. That democracy dredges more harbors, builds better schools, offers better health care, and provides more job opportunities than does authoritarian rule. They want to show that the time spent in jail, that the hardships that their families endured, and the sacrifices that we all made have ensured a better quality of life for our beloved children. Perhaps in more established democracies, people don't pose these sorts of issues. But in newborn ones, such as ours, the principle that we don't have to throw out the democratic baby with the autocratic bathwater isn't yet established. All too often in this country, governments change when systems change. In short, the people want their government to start delivering the pledges made to them on behalf of democracy. For that to happen, we must ensure that we use our resources transparently and prudently. We also need to augment our resources through partnerships with the private sector, foreign investors, and donors of official development assistance. Our agenda today is to find ways to secure such collaboration. It is indeed auspicious that the forum is being held so early in the tenure of the first democratic government in the Maldives. It is not just the impatience of the people for a better quality of life that makes this forum important and urgent, but the fact that it is vitally important to build a sound foundation for democratic consolidation. The forum also offers a good opportunity for stakeholders in the development of Maldives to sit down with us and discuss at length the development policies, plans, and projects of the new government. It is also an opportunity to assess the challenges facing the country and identify ways to address them, from economic wars to climate change. The aim of the new government is not only to complete the democratic revolution that we have initiated, but also to transform the social and economic landscape of the country with a revolution in development. We naturally want to reassure domestic and international constituencies that what we propose to do is both practical and sustainable. We will have occasion today and tomorrow to discuss these plans at length. Excellencies, for people to attain continuous improvements in the quality of life, they must always remain free. We must not think that the experiences of other countries which belong to the so-called third wave of democratization are of no relevance to us. Democracy can never be taken for granted. In all three waves of democracy, more countries went through a democratic reversal than proceed to progress towards consolidation. Democratization often failed in countries where there was no previous democratic experience. The task of consolidation, therefore, becomes particularly difficult amidst economic wars. That is why we have been seeking the assistance of our development partners in addressing the economic difficulties that the new government inherited. That is also why this forum is so crucial. because in countries where democracy was accompanied by economic improvements, consolidation was easy. Research shows that the most significant gains in freedom are attained in the first few months or years of democratization rather than over a long, drawn-out time frame. Therefore, it is again important that we get to work immediately to strengthen the foundations of a free society. Free and fair elections, an active legislature, an independent judiciary, a free media, and a vibrant civil society are the bulwarks of democracy and human rights. The people of this country have a unique chance to showcase to the world how democracy can grow even in the most unlikely places. It may be a test for a particular party or an alliance of parties, but it is also a test for a whole generation of Maldivians who believe that our nation, known as a paradise for all the affluent in the world, can also become a paradise to its own people. At the end of the day, it is also a test for the international community of their willingness to ensure that the force of democracy prevail. We are all very proud of what we have been able to achieve so far on the road to democracy, and we are grateful to our international partners who helped us march on that road to freedom. The agenda is not yet complete. We hope to work together, hand in hand, along the road of freedom, peace, and prosperity. In my travels to solicit support for this forum, I received assurances from a number of governments and other donors of their readiness to support the new democratic government in the Maldives. All of them and more are present here today. I look forward to a very engaging discussions today and tomorrow. There is no doubt that this forum will become a landmark event on the road to the new Maldives that you, Mr. President, are committed to building in the shortest possible time frame. I do hope that our guests find their stay in the Maldives both fruitful and enjoyable. Before I conclude, I would like to thank all those who have worked very hard to convene this meeting, particularly those at the Ministry of Finance and the UN country team, as well as my colleagues in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in particular my Minister of State, Mr. Ahmad Nasim, and Chief Coordinator, Dr. Hussein Niaz and his team. Finally, a big thank you also to Bandos and its management and staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I now invite His Excellency Ahmad Assad, Minister of State for Finance and Treasury, to deliver his remarks. Honorable Ahmad Assad.
Your Excellency, the President, the Vice President, the Resident Coordinator of UNDP, United Nations, those who wish us well, our colleagues, friends. Indeed, it's a good morning and it's a nice day, but what I have to say in the few minutes that I have got is not very bright. I wish I had a brighter story to share with you, but that's not the case. As the Foreign Minister has stated, Maldives is undergoing a change which is desired by its people, for which the people have voted. But our challenges are numerous. We are left in a situation where our fiscal situation is not in the best of the shapes. We do not have a proper and affordable housing. There is no transportation system that links the country. Our health and social security is to be attended to. We have a serious case of substance abuse, especially among the youth. And in a time of such economic difficulty, we also are required to maintain inflation law. It is indeed a big challenge, and the challenge becomes more with the global economic crisis that everybody is facing today. We are a nation that's dependent on others, especially the backbone of the country is tourism, which is much dependent on Europe. Nearly 1/3 of our GDP is based on tourism, and if you look at the multiplier, it is more. Perhaps 50% of our GDP is dependent on tourism. We take pride, and we often talk about the resilience of the sector, how it has come back from the 9/11 and the Asian tsunami. But this time it is different. In those two cases, the buying power of the tourists who come here remained unchanged. But this time the whole situation has changed. We initially estimated that in 2008 we would have a growth of 9%. Unfortunately, we realized only 1.1% growth. And when we did the initial estimates for 2009, we hoped that we would have a mere 1% growth. But the figures for January and February shows that we would have close to an 11% decline in arrivals, which is perhaps not in line with what the WTO predicts, which is 0 to 2% negative. However, we believe that it is prudent for us to estimate that it's going to be less than that. Next to tourism, we also have a construction industry which contributes to the GDP heavily, but yet again, the construction industry is much dependent on the tourism industry. Between 2004 and 2008, 60 islands have been earmarked for development as resorts. But unfortunately, only less than 5 have come into operation. The difficulty that we face is none but finance. Our domestic financial market is so small that it cannot support such a development. The international market is not the easiest to tap, especially at a time like this. The situation becomes more difficult with the policies of the past, where it is not fashioned in a way that is most conducive to investors. High rents, lack of infrastructure such as airports does not make it attractive for the investors to put their money into such projects. It's the government's wish to be flexible within laws, to encourage investors to come into Maldives and invest in our backbone, which is the tourism industry. Next in line is the fisheries sector, which has had ups and downs and which has experienced a negative growth on and off. Which our fisheries sector is also much dependent on fuel. And the fuel price hikes in 2008 has had a negative impact on the industry. The growth figures for 2009 remains very low, in fact. We may be hopeful that we would achieve a 15% growth, but it's more prudent to believe that the figure would not be so. Partly because new vessels or new investments in the sector would again be curtailed by lack of finance and investment opportunities. Well, I can go on with the list and tell you more sad stories, but we also believe that we cannot come out of this situation alone. We're too small and too fragile. We need the assistance of development partners. We need the assistance of investors who see an opportunity in this country and help us take this country forward and deliver our promises to the people, for which the people have voted for. We also have a fiscal situation that we have inherited from the past. We can go back as far back as 3 decades. And the figures would reveal that we have not built a fiscal reserve on which we can depend in a rainy day like this. We do not have a fiscal reserve. Our foreign currency situation is no better. Our foreign currency situation is depleting day by day, despite the fact that we have a billion-dollar industry named as tourism. It is time we think seriously about how we can retain this money, especially the foreign currency in this country. If you look at the inflation figures in the past, we have maintained it in 1 digit until last year. But the figures show that it's 12% in last year, partly because of what happened around us, partly because what happened within. In the past 3 years especially, our fiscal policies are fashioned in such a way that it is not important to maintain the budgets within the limits of our earnings. This is a situation that we plan to change and on which we have been working, and we believe we would achieve. Up to date, ministries, spending units have been practicing an incremental budgeting system where they obviously ask more than what they spent the previous year. On the contrary, this year we have informed all the ministries that the country's earning capacities are so and so, and that they have to limit themselves within our means. We cannot go on adding to the fiscal situation that we inherited from the past. We cannot ask the monetary authority to print money. We cannot contribute to inflation. But we also urge the finance sector to be more proactive, and instead of printing money, find out proper ways of borrowing from the public, especially if we claim that there is excess liquidity in the market. Well, I think the time has come for me to stop. You have a paper which gives details of this situation, and we are available for the next 2 days for any questions that we need to answer. Some of our development partners may also not agree with some of the measures that we have taken. But we believe that we have done what is best for the country at this juncture. We believe that we can also change the opinion of some of the partners if we sit down and discuss things at length. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I now invite Mr. Petris Korbizot, UN Resident Coordinator, to deliver his remarks. Mr. Petris Korbizot.
Thank you. Excellency, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, Special Envoy, Honorable Ministers, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Ministers, distinguished ambassadors and esteemed members of the international community, representatives of the Maldivian government, representatives of the private sector, the civil society, dear colleagues of the United Nations system, dear participants. On behalf of the UN system, I'm delighted to be here to co-host this 3rd session of the Maldives Partnership Forum together with the government. Ladies and gentlemen, We now live in a world that demands a new constellation of cooperation to bring about development. A world that detects that actors cannot go it alone, as sustainable development requires the governments, international partners, civil society and the private sector work together for the collective good. In this slide, this partnership forum provides a wonderful opportunity for the government to engage in dialogue with its partners in order to more effectively address the development challenges that the Maldives is confronted. Moreover, it presents the first opportunity for the new administration to present and discuss its policies and strategic direction to its partners. Today, during my remarks, I will briefly comment on some of the recent developments within the Maldives and speak to some of the opportunities and challenges facing the country that require, in our view, the action of the government with collective support from its partners. Ladies and gentlemen, we can all agree that the Maldives has made remarkable progress in advancing democracy in recent times. Mr. President, the UN system and the international community have closely followed the democratic reform process, and we commend the Maldives for the remarkable achievements made, including developments such as the finalization of the constitution, the separation of powers and creation of an independent judiciary, the holding of first ever multi-party presidential election, and the establishment of the first multi-party government. These all stand to reaffirm the commitment of the nation to consolidate and deepen its democracy. The peaceful transition after the presidential election was recognized all over the world, including by the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who encouraged the country to continue to strengthen its democracy. The stage is set for achieving a more open and inclusive process to proactively strengthen the institution of democracy and governance. Ladies and gentlemen, the new government has outlined its vision and approaches and will do so in more detail during the course of this forum. A key component of the vision and strategic direction is the drive to sustain democracy, human rights, and good governance, and we encourage the government to ensure that the democratization process continues in a positive trajectory. Key aspects in ensuring this will include the continued promotion of a culture of inclusion and participation, the strengthening of key institutions of governance and promotion of respect for the rule of law and anti-corruption. This should also exist together with ensuring that clear rules and transparent systems exist for the functioning of parliamentary and constitutional commissions and bodies. The strengthening of implementation of the United Nations conventions and the subsequent translation of these conventions into national law as relevant requires added attention by the government in order to ensure greater enforcement, protection, and promotion of civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. Past visits of the United Nations Special Rapporteurs have also flagged some of these recommendations. As you may be aware, the government has given much priority to the decentralization and regionalization program in order to bring the administration closer to the people and include all citizens in the decision making. As part of UNDP's larger support to advancing democratic governance, the UNDP is providing technical assistance to support the government to finalize this program and will help to support its implementation. The government, however, requires additional support for other donors to ensure the success of the implementation of this decentralization and regionalization program, which has been voiced by the President. Ladies and gentlemen, while the country has made significant progress in several areas and at an aggregate level, it is on track to meet the Millennium Development Goals, it still faces several challenges to its development.